Top scariest horror films of all time. Let's do it.
Wow.
I realized I probably shouldn't have yelled that. I probably should have said something like, the top scariest horror films of all time.
Wouldn't have helped.
Cue the graphic again.
Okay.
Cue the graphic again. Wow, we are quite the production, aren't we?
We are, yes we are.
Unbelievable. All right, so Wade, here's the situation.
Yes, what's the situation, Mark?
So we have 7 of the top horror films of all time.
That's
Scariest horror films of all time.
Yes.
And as we were going through these before the show, which means we're making it up as we go along, but let's just
Pretty
say it
much.
was before the show.
Sure.
Let's say there was a production meeting where we discussed things.
Okay.
Which of course is not true.
Wink.
I realized that all these films, and really horror films generally speaking, are all about claustrophobia.
Very true.
You know, you're
That's
in
it.
an enclosed space.
Or it can be claustrophobia in the open, which is why if you're out in a forest at night, there's also a sense of claustrophobia.
That is true. So the claustrophobia.
It closes in around you.
That is true. It doesn't necessarily have to be the specific environment, the physical environment you're in.
Correct.
Like, like Buried. Okay, Buried is a horror-ish film because you can't get any more.
It's the fear of
claustrophobic than
not
that.
knowing what is just beyond your reach.
That is true. Ooh, well, look at that.
That's it.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right, so. By the way, Jamie has what? Jamie, your T-shirt is what?
A House on Haunted Hill, the original, the Vincent
Price. That's right.
The original Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill T-shirt. By the way,
Excellent.
that did not make. Not only did that movie not make our top 7.
Oh, we were very, very stringent with our criteria.
It's also not really good, to be honest with you. I mean, really, some of those old movies, they're not good. Huh?
Better than the remake.
By the way, can I say something? Psycho, not funny anymore. I'm just saying it. Okay. So, what? Psycho, not funny anymore. I mean, not funny, not horrific anymore.
I was going to say, it never was funny.
Oh.
Funny anymore.
Martin Balsam, like, keeling down the stairs.
No.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
No. Huh? Huh?
Oh, my
You know
God.
what? The first movie is The Fly.
Yes, not the original, not the 1958 Fly with
Right.
David Hedison,
This is the
which is ridiculous.
Right. This is the 1986 Fly.
A very, very loose remake from David Cronenberg.
That is true. And The Fly, which of course, as you probably know, hopefully you've seen it, is stars Jeff Goldblum as a scientist whose DNA is mixed with that of a common housefly, and the two merge, and slowly along the course of the film, Jeff Goldblum's character Seth Brundle turns into a fly.
Things get ooky.
And the reason why this movie specifically is so horrific is because, unlike all the other films where there's external forces trying to kill you, this is a movie about your body betraying you. Your body betraying you, you're slowly turning to something else, and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's a very unique sort of way to enter that sort of horror genre. And I thought it was just so terrifying because, again, some people saw it as being an AIDS allegory, which I do kind of agree with, but generally, really, the horror comes from the gore. Because as he starts to turn into the fly, he gets very into the bodily fluids. Remember the scene where he vomits on the food, so it liquefies and he can eat it.
Yeah.
He starts noticing his body is changing. He starts peeling off his fingernails.
Come off, sure.
All that stuff is very horrific. Because again, it's not about people trying to kill you. It's about your body betraying you. And I thought that was really unique. And that's what makes that movie so horrific.
It is. It was not originally one of my favorite films of the 80s, but it has endured in a very, very compelling way. So I think it's really interesting. It's a good pick, and it's really stood the test of time.
It really has.
It really has.
Now the sequel has not stood the test of time.
No.
The Fly 2.
No, absolutely not.
With Eric Stoltz.
No.
Oh, Eric Stoltz.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's The Fly. That's number 1. Wade, now you have one.
Next one, you betcha. We've got 1965 Roman Polanski, Repulsion. A lot of people like to pick other Roman Polanski films. I think Repulsion is far and away his scariest film. This stars Catherine Deneuve as a woman who is sexually repressed, and over a course of time, in this claustrophobia, in this apartment, she loses her mind. And it is absolutely one of the most intensely creepy, terrifying, freaky films you will ever see. It is, I think it's one of the underrated Roman Polanski films, but it is out there on a Criterion DVD, so it's definitely worth checking out. But everything about this film, the black and white, the Deneuve's performance, you genuinely feel like you're going insane along with her. It puts you inside the head of someone who's losing it, and you feel like you're losing it at the same time. It's Roman Polanski does this better than anyone else, where he actually forces you inside the experience of the character. And more than Rosemary's Baby, which is usually the Polanski film people pick for Halloween, I think this is absolutely one that knocks it out of the park.
Well, there was something so interesting about the movie because in the film she's sort of stuck in this house.
Yeah.
Right? And the house almost takes on a life of its own that starts to envelop her.
Yeah.
And there are scenes in the film towards the end remember when she's going down the hallway and the hands start to come out?
It's great.
It's great stuff.
It's great. And there no special effects, no unusual trick. It's just great, solid filmmaking, editing, photography, everything, just all of the real tools at his disposal in the moment, and then in post-production, he brings it all together. And honestly, if you want to see a film that just makes people squirm, this is one you see like at a midnight show out somewhere in a revival house.
Because again, like the best ones, it's very interior.
Yeah.
Again, no one's trying to kill her. It's all in her mind.
All in her head.
You know, and we can kind of picture that. So, all right, so we have The Fly, and we have Repulsion. Now, Wade, my next pick is John Carpenter's The Thing.
Ew.
What? No, it's the best.
You're picking ooky films from the 80s. Another remake, by the way. Another remake of a 50s film.
That is true.
Yeah.
Now, The Thing I loved because it was part of the watershed sci-fi year of 1982.
It sure was.
Now, we are some of the original fanboys.
Oh, yeah.
Because 1982, here's what 1982 gave us, Wade.
Wrath of Khan.
Star Trek II, the movie I've seen the most amount of times.
Blade Runner.
I saw Blade Runner.
Tron.
Right? Tron.
Woo!
Right?
Yeah.
And of course, John Carpenter's The Thing.
Road Warrior.
Huh?
Road Warrior.
Road Warrior.
Megaforce.
All right, moving on.
Okay.
Megaforce.
Sorry.
Kill the mood. Okay, so in The Thing, which stars Kurt Russell, and sort of an all-star B cast, but it's a good cast, including Wilford Brimley, a team of Antarctic scientists are stuck on this base, and the base is infiltrated by this alien creature who can take over the bodies of people. And then, of course, the best part of the film is when the crew realizes who is the thing, and the moment they realize who the thing is, the thing starts to like explode and stuff comes out of people's heads.
Pre-CGI.
Pre-CGI.
Yeah.
You know?
It's all insanely impressive.
And that's also, what's also good about the film is not only the Rob Bottin effects, which at the time were totally state-of-the-art and still hold up, may I say.
Really still hold up.
But also, you know, we talk about claustrophobia, and this film takes place in sort of this Arctic science base, but you have paranoia. Because this group of people, they're in this closed environment, and they're all wondering who is the thing.
Yep.
And of course, once they realize who it is, then of course all hell breaks loose. And by the way, what's great about The Thing, which people don't remember, besides the Ennio Morricone score, by the way, you know, John Carpenter usually does his own music.
Yeah.
But here it was Ennio Morricone.
Thank goodness.
Oh, Escape from New York, the best score ever. Don't make me hum that thing. It's so good. It's the best score ever.
Plays with a synthesizer. He just plays with a synthesizer.
Well, so what?
It's terrible.
No, it's not.
Yes.
Okay. Now you realize that The Thing, E.T. opened up a couple of weeks before The Thing.
Yes, it did.
So it was E.T. in 1982.
Yes.
Right, which is all frothy and we're all a kid again.
Yes.
The alien's flying with the boy, and it's all sad with the finger. 2 weeks later, The Thing.
Yeah.
It's kicking your butt.
Not really.
That was the movie I liked. I liked The Thing. I was all about The Thing, baby.
It's all about counter-programming at that point.
That's true.
And that's why it did well.
On demand right now, if anyone wants to watch it, The Thing.
On demand?
Yeah, it's been playing a lot lately, and if anyone is on
Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell, actually one of his better performances.
Oh yeah, he's great.
He's really, really good in it.
Well,
Sells it.
he did a bunch of John Carpenter films. Big Trouble in Little China, obviously Escape from New York. Yeah, he was his guy. All right, so John Carpenter's The Thing, to me, one of the scariest horror films of all time. Wade, what do you got next?
Funny, you're sticking with the 80s, I'm sticking with the 60s here. There's a theme here. You're noticing this. You're all about horror in the 80s, I'm all about horror in the 60s.
Well, you know why? I grew up in the 80s. Wade grew up in the 60s.
Okay. All right.
1860s.
Could be. I'm going to go with 1961, The Innocents, directed by Jack Clayton. This is an adaptation of Henry James' novel, The Turn of the Screw. And it's one of the greatest performances ever by Deborah Kerr, one of the greatest actresses of all time. Deborah Kerr and Michael Redgrave. It's basically one of those governess movies. You've seen a lot of them. Sound of Music, Mary Poppins, movies about governesses and kids, but this one's not fun. The governess is caring for children, and there is an issue of people who may have died who are haunting the scenario, who are haunting the home, haunting the property. One of the moodiest films you'll ever see. Again, spectacular black and white photography. And there's one one particular moment, and again, no CGI, no special effects, this is all all of that gimmicky stuff. There's a moment where it is nothing but real-time photography and lighting effects, and it's one of the most chilling moments you will ever see in any film ever. It is so well choreographed, so well conceived, so well executed. It's just brilliant filmmaking top to bottom.
And also, what's great about the movie is that sometimes in film, which a lot of modern-day filmmakers forget, is what you don't see is sometimes more terrifying.
Absolutely.
Because filmmakers nowadays don't quite understand, or they don't know, or they don't care that whatever you can think up in your head is way more terrifying than what they can put on screen.
Absolutely.
So if they can tap into that, you can just basically terrify yourself. Which I do all the time when I look in the mirror.
There we go.
Hey, woo! Bam!
Bam! Not even a courtesy chuckle on that.
No,
Come on,
not really.
being self-deprecating. Oh, don't.
It's the horror episode.
Yes.
It's the horror episode.
That was a pretty horrific joke.
Yeah.
Okay, so and also there's great stuff with the Deborah Carr character being sort of like sexually repressed.
Oh, as in Repulsion, there are always those sexual issues. A lot of these movies have those.
So The Innocents, you're a big fan of The Innocents.
I think The Innocents, it's just one of the most terrifying movies ever.
Now, to me, can I say something, by the way, before we move on? Now, when we're making our list, and as Wade says, 80s, 60s, that means we're not doing, our list is not going to be Saw 1, Saw 2, Saw 5, Saw 3, Saw 4, Saw 8. That's not what we think that's not horrific to us.
No.
It really isn't.
Not in the least.
But you know why? Because there's really no filmmaking expertise on display in those movies.
And no Platinum Dunes remakes of 70s and 80s films that aren't even on our list to begin with.
That's true, because you know what? You can make 10,000 Saw films, but it will not be as good as the next film I'm about to talk about, which, as far as I'm concerned, ladies and gentlemen, honestly, truly, is perfect. It is not just perfect as a horror film or a scary film. It is a perfect film. It is Alien from 1979. And if you don't know Alien, first of all, what are you watching this show for if you don't know Alien? But it's essentially with Tom Skerritt and Sigourney Weaver and a great cast, Yaphet Kotto, about a mining ship. It takes place in the future. A mining ship. They hear a distress call. They go down to a planet. One of the astronauts gets attacked by this thing on his face.
There's an
goes
egg,
back up to the ship.
There's an egg.
Explodes,
there's a face hugger. There's a chest burster.
Blah, like that. It was awesome.
Cat screaming.
There's a cat screaming. Stuff comes down.
Sigourney Weaver in a tight T-shirt.
Harry Dean Stanton dies. It's unbelievable.
It's great.
Ridley Scott directed it, and it is just so fantastic. First of all, here's why it's great. The movie is all tension.
Mood.
It's all mood and tension. You know, when you think about it, the
claustrophobia, trapped in a ship.
That's right. But also, sometimes the wind-up is so much more effective than the pitch. Because really, there's only, 7 or 8 people on the ship. So really, there's only X number of gory deaths.
Yeah.
But you're waiting for the next one, and waiting, and waiting, and the screws are turning. And it's so well done.
And because, as with so many of the other films we've talked about, particularly The Thing, being a very similar kind of a film, there's always the sense of, where is it? And the environment that you're in it is claustrophobic in that sense, where you don't know really what's 2 or 3 or 4 feet away from you. You don't know what's around the next corner. So that sense of feeling trapped, as well as being trapped in an environment that sort of defies your senses, that defies your ability to control it, to perceive it, is great.
And also, another reason why this film is on here is because so many bad horror films have that cheap boo moment when they open up the cabinet and then the cat flies away.
And it's all sound. It's all about the sound, because those boom moments are always accompanied with a big loud sound, because human beings always jump when there's a loud sound, whether it's whether it's genuinely scary or not, and that's cheap.
But that's cheap filmmaking.
That's cheap filmmaking.
And what's also great about it, although it's not necessarily horror or scary related, is that really Alien was one of the first, if not the first, science fiction film that showed space being a grungy, dirty, blue-collar occupation.
Yep.
You know, you get Yaphet Kotto and Harry Dean Stanton. They're in the bowels of the ship. They're sweating. They're wiping the sweat off their brow.
And a lot of that has to do with Sid Mead, the production designer. Sid Mead, who designed all of the amazing futuristic stuff, but who designed it with a sense of sort of wear and utility and this lived-in, there's fingerprints, there's dirt on buttons that are used a lot, and that some of the stuff is worn off, and there's a real sense of this space having been lived in and used a lot, and that adds to sort of the almost like future Gothic sense of of oppression within the film.
That is true. The movie
Yeah.
is editing, score,
Everything.
It's totally textbook.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's brilliant.
Now that's my pick. Wade, what's your next one?
My next one, going back to the 60s, 1962, a little film called Carnival of Souls by Herc Harvey. Herc Harvey was an industrial filmmaker who never really did anything else in the feature realm. He made industrials, and then he made Carnival of Souls, and then he went away. This was a little low-budget movie, no stars, made primarily in Kansas with his no-name industrial crew. They shot a little bit in Utah as well, so it was mostly Kansas, about 80% Kansas, 20% Utah. And it's the story of a church organist who has survived an accident, but it's an accident that she should have drowned in. She should have died, and so she's sort of halfway between the two worlds. And the ghosts of the beyond haunt her throughout, almost beckoning her to come to the other side. And everything about the film, the organ score alone, will send chills down your spine. The organ music is so freaky, so creepy, and when it kicks in, it's just so wrong in every conceivable way that alone is horrifying. Everything else about the movie, the photography, the editing, the way that the ghosts manifest themselves, Harvey is a genius, and it's just a tragedy that he never went on to make more films and bigger films and films with more resources. But this also is on a Criterion Collection DVD. It's a tremendous classic. It's become a real cult classic, and if you haven't seen Carnival of Souls, treat yourselves. It is one of the scariest, freakiest films you'll ever see.
And by the way, can I say this? If you want to watch it a whole different way, you realize this is the only film on our list that's been spoofed by Mystery Science Theater.
Which is wrong.
No, it's right.
No, it's wrong.
Everything Mystery Science Theater does is right.
No, that's wrong. Carnival of Souls, brilliant. Made me jump. Not a lot of movies make me jump.
Physically jump out of your seat.
Physically jump.
What, are you like 10 years old, or like this is recently?
No, this was like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. Nah, no, maybe more like 10
Do you also
years ago.
cried commercials? Or you
Sometimes.
Really?
I do. Like those commercials with old people, and they need like their
The medical bracelet? What do they
bracelet.
need?
Yeah,
that makes you cry.
It does.
That is horrific.
He also finds Leno to be funny.
I do.
Wade
I do.
finds Leonard to be funny. You also like Small Wonder and Blossom and all those horrible
They're
sitcoms from the 80s.
wonderful, aren't they?
Jesus Christ. Why are you on the show? Laura Keitlinger, this seat's, can you fit in this seat? Laura Keitlinger. Okay, so, okay, let's recap, Wade.
We got one more.
I like to recap.
I know, but we have one more.
I know we have one more.
Okay.
So let's recap before we get to the big one.
Let's do it.
We have The Fly,
The Fly.
the remake. John Carpenter's The Thing.
No, Repulsion.
Repulsion.
Polanski, Repulsion.
Polanski's Repulsion. The Innocents. We have Alien. Carnival of Souls.
Yes.
And then Wade, I don't know if this is the most horrific, scary film ever made, but boy, is it in
And
the
we
top,
both love it.
It is really in the top one.
When we went on
Let me tell
this
you.
was the only film that our lists converged on.
That is true. We are talking about, of course,
Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Yeah.
this is, of course,
Danny!
You know what? You know what's funny is that the most famous line in that film, which is "Here's Johnny."
Yeah.
Kubrick lived in England.
Yes.
And he didn't know what that line meant.
Had no clue.
And Nicholson had lived that.
Yeah.
So Kubrick was going to cut that
Yeah.
out of the film.
Yeah.
You know, and go with the original line, whatever it was. And I don't know what that line was, but that was the possibly apocryphal story about how Kubrick didn't know that there was a Here's Johnny.
There are so many brilliant things about The Shining, and we should point out, you know, Rosemary's Baby and The Omen and The Exorcist are not on the list because everybody always thinks of those movies. They're sort of the staple films that always wind up on every Halloween list, every horror movie list, every scary movie list. But The Shining is one that has to be there because Stephen King wrote a very good novel that Kubrick saw for something other than what King had written. He saw more in the work than King had intended. So he changed it in ways that King wasn't fond of, but he wound up making a better story out of it. The movie is actually better than the novel in many, many ways because it gets into all of these mystical, existential considerations that King really never intended to do. But they fit, they work. And Nicholson is amazing. Shelley Duvall is phenomenal. Scatman Crothers is great. You know, the kid is creepy beyond all comprehension. That kid is just wrong. He's just wrong. He's just not a normal child. But
And you know, like a lot of Kubrick films, it was not completely embraced at the time it was released.
no.
You know, it was lukewarm,
Yeah.
and really only over the years, like a lot of his films, really, only over the years was it reevaluated and finally appreciated for what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he made this thing. Barry Lyndon, which was his film before this,
Yeah.
Barry Lyndon was kind of a financial failure.
But a
And
great movie.
But I love that movie. That movie
Won a
was so
bunch of
well
Oscars.
shot, as well it should have. It was so well shot by John Alcott. But Kubrick wanted something a little more commercial, so he decided to take on this
Shining.
novel, you know, The Shining. And it was also the first time he had used a Steadicam. And you can tell he's working it out because this Overlook Hotel, which by the way was at the time the largest set
stage.
It was the largest set ever built to that time.
Yeah.
And he takes the Steadicam and he goes
Pinewood,
through.
I think it was.
It was at Pinewood, and he goes through the hallways. And again, like we're talking
Danny
about,
and his big wheel rolling around, the camera following him.
and it's the low angle. Because again, we're talking
stuff.
about the dread and the claustrophobia and the tension. We're not talking about the boo stuff because the boo stuff again is so easy to do. What's harder to do is to build tension, you know, and to really stretch it out so you really turn the screws on the audience. So when you do scare them, it's enormous.
And the creep factor here is that in this enormous hotel, there's no one else there. It's basically shut down. They're caretaking the hotel during the off season, and things are going on in the hotel. So there's very much again it gets into that same claustrophobic, the psychological claustrophobia because it's big and it's spacious. But yet you're trapped, and you feel trapped, and you don't know what's going on in different rooms, and then just things transpire, and elevators open, and there's blood, and there's old women in, getting out of bathtubs, and twins, and murderous ghosts in bathrooms, and it's just amazing.
What was that?
Amazing.
Bear giving a blowjob.
And a bear giving a blowjob. Look at
Thank
that.
you. That's
All right, so
Family rating.
there goes
There
the
we
family
go.
rating. So, all right, and of course, as you say, Scatman Crothers was fantastic, and
Amazing.
Nicholson. You know, there was a rumor that I think De Niro was up for the role, possibly.
Wouldn't have worked.
And a bunch of our actors from the time. You need somebody who can go completely unhinged, and De Niro can go unhinged,
And the
but
music,
not like Jack.
the music. Could we talk about the Walter Carlos music?
Yes,
Amazing. The Wendy Carlos music.
the synth music that for some reason now you love, but you didn't love when it was Ennio Morricone.
No, I'm not objecting to synth music. I'm objecting to John Carpenter synth music.
It's so good.
It's not.
I have the.
When was the last time you listened to it?
I had the album.
You do.
I bought the album at the time.
And you rock out to it?
I bought the album at a little record store in Los Angeles called Licorice Pizza. Okay, who knows Licorice Pizza? Everybody?
What?
Licorice
I remember.
Pizza.
Still
Yeah,
exists?
from the
No,
70s.
No, it doesn't. Huh?
From the 70s.
Licorice Pizza. It was fantastic. Love that store. Anyway, all right.
Yes.
So The Shining, to me, okay.
Great
of all
stuff.
these, I would say my number one, that's tough. It's between Alien and The Shining. I don't know if I can pick. It's like picking between my kids that I don't have.
Shining.
Huh?
Shining.
Shining's the number one for you. Well, those are some great picks. But
Yeah.
although I would still recommend The Omen.
Yeah.
And I will say this because, we're talking about Jamie Shirt, House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
I have to say, a lot of these older films really, honestly, truly, don't really hold up from a scary factor.
No.
Maybe from a filmmaking factor.
Of more
yes.
recent films, I would only recommend Ring or Ringu.
A lot of the Japanese horror films, they are
the
very
Ring's
good.
and Ringu is great.
Also,
They're equally good.
what's also good, although it's really only horrific in the last half an hour, is Audition. Audition is also really
Only if you're a
scary.
man.
Huh?
If you're a man, it's scary. If you're a woman, it's like a comedy.
That movie
Seriously.
is wild. All right, so great. By the way, great recommendations, right, Wade? These are great. These are great horror film
These are
recommendations.
outstanding.
They're fantastic.
They're outstanding.
You're patting yourself on the back. You're like,
Oh yeah.
These are great recommendations.
These are good. It's about as good as it gets.
I
You
want.
realize these were your picks, right?
Huh?
Yeah.
These would be anybody's picks, except for the tools who love the Saw films. These would be any
Right.
cinephile's picks.
Those
Yes.
people are not watching our show. I mean, honestly, the Saw film, lovers of those kind of films probably are not. But let's see what happens on our Buy, Rent, or Burn. That's coming up a little bit later.
Yeah.
Let's see what they ask you about. Maybe we'll see exactly.
Well, you know what? I'm going to do
it's
so.
like.
Right now, I'm going to pre-burn the entire Saw franchise. Pre-burn it. Camera 2, pre-burn it.
We're
I'm
not-
going to pre-burn the Saw films.
Everything goes in order. It's very.
Oh, look at that! See,
show is-
she put it up.
TriCaster Emily.
That's right. TriCaster Emily kicked your butt. All right, so there you go, folks. Those are the scariest horror films of all time. Really unique, and that's what makes that movie so horrific.
It is. It was not originally one of my favorite films of the '80s, but it has endured in a very, very compelling way. So I think it's really interesting. It's a good pick, and it's really stood the test of time.
It really has.
It really has.
Now the sequel has not stood the test of time.
No,
The Fly 2
no, absolutely not.
with Eric Stoltz.
No.
Oh, Eric Stoltz.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's The Fly. That's number one. Wade, now you have one. you
Next
love.
one, you betcha. We've got 1965 Roman Polanski Repulsion. A lot of people like to pick other Roman Polanski films. I think Repulsion is far and away his scariest film. This stars Catherine Deneuve as a woman who is sexually repressed, and over a course of time, in this claustrophobia, in this apartment, she loses her mind. And it is absolutely one of the most intensely creepy, terrifying, freaky films you will ever see. It is, I think it's one of the underrated Roman Polanski films, but it is out there on the Criterion DVD. So
Slowly along the course of the film, Jeff Goldblum's character, Seth Brundle, turns into a fly.
things get ooky.
And the reason why this movie specifically is so horrific is because, unlike all the other films where there's external forces trying to kill you, this is a movie about your body betraying you. Your body betraying you, you're slowly turning to something else, and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's a very unique sort of way to enter that sort of horror genre. And I thought it was just so terrifying because, again, some people saw it as being an AIDS allegory, which I do kind of agree with. But generally, really, the horror comes from the gore. Because as he starts to turn into the fly, he gets very into the bodily fluids. Remember the scene where he vomits on the food, so it liquefies and he can eat it.
Yeah.
He starts noticing his body is changing. He starts peeling off his fingernails.
Come off, sure.
All that stuff is very horrific. Because again, it's not about people trying to kill you. It's about your body betraying you. And I thought that was really... Top scariest horror films of all time. Let's do it!
Wow.
I realized I probably shouldn't have yelled that. I probably should have said something like, the top scariest horror films of all time.
Wouldn't have helped.
Cue the graphic again.
Okay.
Cue the graphic again. Wow, we are quite the production, aren't we?
We are, yes we are.
Unbelievable. All right, so Wade, here's the situation.
Yes, what's the situation, Mark?
So we have 7 of the top horror films of all time.
That's
Scariest horror films of all time.
Yes.
And as we were going through these before the show, which means we're making it up as we go along, but let's just
Pretty
say it
much.
was before the show.
Sure.
Let's say there was a production meeting where we discussed things.
Okay.
Which of course is not true.
Wink.
I realized that all these films, and really horror films generally speaking, are all about claustrophobia.
Very true.
You're
That's
in
it.
an enclosed space.
Or it can be claustrophobia in the open, which is why if you're out in a forest at night, there's also a sense of claustrophobia.
That is true. So the claustrophobia...
It closes in around you.
That is true. It doesn't necessarily have to be the specific environment, the physical environment you're in.
Correct.
Like Buried. Okay, Buried is a horror-ish film because you can't get any more...
it's the fear of
claustrophobic than
not
that.
knowing what is just beyond your reach.
That is true. Ooh, well, look at that.
That's it.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right, so... By the way, Jamie has what, Jamie, your T-shirt is what?
A House on Haunted Hill, the original, the Vincent
That's right.
The
Not
original
yes.
Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill T-shirt. By the way,
Excellent.
not only did that movie not make our top 7,
Oh, we were very, very stringent with our criteria.
it's also not really good, to be honest with you. I mean, really, some of those
But
old
it's better
movies,
than the
they're not
remake.
good. Huh?
Better than the remake.
By the way, can I say something? Psycho, not funny anymore. I'm just saying it. Okay. So, what? Psycho, not funny anymore. I mean, not
Funny?
funny, not horrific anymore.
I was going to
Did I just
say,
say
it never
funny?
was funny.
Oh.
Funny anymore.
Martin Balsam, like, keeling down the stairs.
No.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
No. Hey, huh? Huh?
Oh, my
Okay, you know
God.
what? The first movie is The Fly.
Yes, not the original, not the 1958 Fly with
Right.
David Hedison,
This is the
which is ridiculous.
Right. This is the 1986 Fly.
A very, very loose remake from David Cronenberg.
That is true. And The Fly, which of course, as you probably know, hopefully you've seen it, is stars Jeff Goldblum as a scientist whose DNA is mixed with that of a common housefly, and the two merge. And